I'm Clint, and welcome to Swatches Livestream number 81. We're going to be taking a look at the Tomb of the Sphinx Art Challenge entries. And we are joined once again by Anna, if I can unmute her channel here. There we go. How you doing, Anna? Anna is joining us in audio only, so that's why her picture is over there is not moving. So yeah, we skipped last week because I was heading out of town to visit family. And so thank you for everyone that has made the time to join us back up this week. How did your time go off of stream there, Anna? I think it's just... Okay, no, it was turned down. It was on, but it was turned down.
Can you hear me now? I was really good. I was pretty busy with real life stuff. Unfortunately, nothing with art so much. But I tried to get a little bit into perspective and was struggling my way through that. Yeah, and also I'm super excited to finally talk about art again.
Yeah, it is good to be back. Okay, yeah, I got it. I have two mic inputs. It's just weird, and anyway, it's situated now. Okay, so we've got 11 different images to go through, and we've both have a chance to take a look at them. I've jotted down notes and stuff, but I want to run through some announcements first here for just a couple of minutes. And this will also give people time to join in live in the chat. Remember, if you are joining us live, make sure that you're putting @swatches in your comment if you're addressing it to me. That way it will be flagged in color. It's much easier for me to see it. I will not be reading all of the comments. Anna will be trying to keep an eye on the chat a little bit and let me know if you guys have questions. And as we have time, we'll try to address those during the live stream. So, we've already mentioned Anna's joining us. Number 2, art advice that will save you years. This is the most recent video I put out, and it has done really well for my channel. And I want to thank you guys for taking the time to go out there and watch it. Over 100,000 views over the last week that it's been out, and that's really incredible. And I haven't had that successful of a video in a long time, and it is very encouraging that there is an audience out there for this kind of information. And not only has it had a lot of views, but I've received over 200 positive comments and feedbacks on the video of you guys just saying how much you found it helpful or it helped clarify something for you. And that has just been really, really encouraging. For all of you that did what I asked you to, which was share the video, thank you for sharing it. I am sure that made a huge difference. And yeah, if you haven't watched this video, it is just a series of things that took me years to learn. A breakdown between 2D and 3D, observation, imagination, and hopefully that sort of breakdown could save you a lot of time in your art journey. So if you haven't watched it, go out there and watch it. And for those who have, thank you. Next week, we will again have Tomb of the Sphinx. Same thing that we're doing this week, but this is the first time that we've had 2 groups doing an art challenge at the same time. So it is the same art challenge, same topic, same everything, but there will be overall 24 people being in it, 12 this week and 12 next week. So if you like what you see this week, join in next week. We're going to do it again with the second group. If you want to have one-on-one time with me, you can go out to art-mentor.com, schedule an hour video consultation. One of the feedback that was shared on the group just today or yesterday from somebody who joined and had a consult said some really positive words there about it, and it was great talking to them. I have a lot of people that are repeats, that they schedule a consult every month to 2 months. We take a look at their progress, and then we make any adjustments that they need to the portfolio that they're building or the education that they're focusing on. And then we go forwards from there. Also, if you like the channel, if you like the comments, like the videos, please leave a comment. YouTube really appreciates it, and then it also helps me know what specifically you found useful or entertaining, and that helps me craft more content that you will like. Also, leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't, because I know at least 40,000 people that watched my last video aren't subs, because I don't have that many subs. All right, anything that I forgot there, Anna? Anything that you want to drop in?
I just have a question to you, Clint, because I got asked and I could not answer that question.
Hmm.
Will this be a new thing for us to have always two groups for these challenges, or is this a one-time thing?
I am open to it being a two-time thing. To this point, there hasn't been enough people to be involved to justify having two groups. But if there is, then I'm happy to have two groups going on. And I think if I do that next time, then I will probably have a duel again, so that you can choose between two different topics, and that would be better. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
okay. All right. Now I want to start with something a little bit different. Anna and I were just talking about this just before the stream. That is the oh yeah, here's the outline. If you're not familiar with what the art challenge is about, I am setting up a fictional basically a fictional project, commission, and you have to do it. So I'm trying to get this down so it'll actually fit on my screen. And you have to go about it as if you got this commission for this project. In this case, it is the Tomb of the Sphinx, fictional board game that has its own characteristics that you have to follow. In this case, they're trying to create images that are square, and it has to have either the heroes or the monsters' choice of the image. And this would be the sort of artwork that would be on the cover of a board game box. Either it can showcase three adventurers who are storming the tomb, or it can show the tomb master, basically the big boss at the end of the tomb. And we have entries that will be, either one of those. And it has a list of the characters that they can choose from to pick on the box. Those would be the characters from the game. Now, general feedback overall is something that we don't normally do, but I think I'm going to start doing it because it keeps me from having to mention it every time on every piece. So a couple of things to keep in mind overall. The concept stage is about establishing the idea, the composition, and the values. Colors is secondary. You don't even necessarily have to establish colors at the concept stage. But it is very crucial that the idea is clear, that it's having an understandable, solid composition, and that the values / lighting, shading is somewhat established. I know this is something that you picked up on, Anna. Any thoughts on this in order to help those who maybe are not used to doing full images?
Yeah. So when I looked at these paintings today, I felt like, yeah, this could have been me like just a year ago, because many of them felt very rushed. I know it's just 2 weeks. You don't have that much time. You need to rush a bit,
Yep.
but people try to push too far for this stage. They have another 2 weeks, and they. When you rush so fast to a specific point, you might lose track of many more important things that are the foundation for a piece. So the very simple first step is to think about the composition. Some really succeeded well with these, but others,
Yes.
I felt like they just threw in some characters and tried to make it work. And some people even used these words in their comments and said, I tried to make it work. Probably what you missed in this case is a good composition, because with a good composition, you can basically pull off most of the things. I don't want to say everything, but you can really
Yeah.
do much with a very stable composition. And
Yes.
the next thing you post on that composition, when you have like a general sketch that you say, I'm going for that way, you put on a little bit at least of perspective and proportions and size comparing, so that you see the foreground, the midground, the background, they all belong to one piece. They are in one world, and yeah, they make sense when put up together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go and think about, okay, values. And values is not just, oh, do I make the object a bright white or do I make the object a dark black? But rather thinking about different mood. And the mood you create,
Yes.
and Clint says this with every video, with lighting. And the lighting makes a mood. You decide then, what do I want to tell the people with my piece? With what do I want them to be more frightened, or feel calm or happy, or what do I want to have for a mood? And this is what you do with the value studies, is the first step of the mood. And then when you have your values done, and not just, as I said, like black and white, but thinking about different light settings, a direct light, ambient lights, something that comes from the backlit, a secondary light. There's so much stuff. Go check out
Mm-hmm.
Clint's PDFs. He has their amazing stuff on his Gumroad.
Yeah,
You
I do
decided
have
that, and
just a little. If you haven't checked it out, I
yeah,
do have a painting process video where I
yeah,
step through how to
yeah,
go about the painting process of a complicated full scene in 10 steps. If you have some money, that's probably well worth money to go do, is to pick up that. If you don't have the money, there's a lot of YouTube videos out there, not necessarily by
yeah,
me, but by a lot of other good artists who will walk you through the painting process. Some of them are okay, some of them kind of waste of time. But anyway, if you take some time and watch some, uh, find a painting process, and that is going to really, really help you. And it's just
yeah,
having a very logical step by step path that you follow from start to finish that makes sure that you're establishing what you need to at each stage. And that will keep you from having to go back and change a lot of things.
yeah,
Something else, number two, pose reference is crucial. I will mention this on some of the images going forwards. It's okay to have a rough pose that you don't
mhm,
necessarily reference early on if you're just trying to work out the general composition and idea. But once you determine the general pose, go get a photo reference. Even a 3D model is good, but you need a person, because 3D models do not behave like people. They're not subject to gravity. You can tilt their heads in angles that aren't natural. They don't have a sense of motion to them. So the 3D model can help you establish some things, but get a photo of a person as well. And number three, standard is standard for a reason. There is nothing wrong with standard. We're talking about standard compositions, standard lighting, and standard colors. Uh, just being original to be original isn't always great. And for something like this, where it would be a commission, they don't need the most original thing that nobody's ever seen before. That's not what they're asking for. They're asking for something that is going to be understandable, that is going to be recognizable off of a shelf from a distance of 20 feet, and it needs to be colorful, and it can't be confusing. People need to be able to glance at it and get an instant understanding of what this is about. And that means that you're relying on, like Anna was saying, composition is a big one. We'll talk about that a bit more going forwards, but those are three of the top things that I wanted to talk about. And I just jotted down a couple of notes right there. The drawing, the lines, the composition, that sort of thing. The drawing tells you the subject. The lighting tells you the mood. So the lighting conveys the emotion. The drawing conveys the subject. Just keep that in mind going forwards with your images. All right, now we need to jump in here because I don't want to go too long. We went too long
Yeah.
the other time.
I'm
First
sorry.
one up, just going alphabetically, Christina. Then also a quick answer to Dodo in the live chat. He said, is there a Swatches Discord? Yes and no. There was one. It sort of, I didn't manage it. I didn't have any moderators. It fell away. I am planning to basically reintroduce it when I get the new site released. I'm just trying to manage certain things at a certain schedule so I don't get overloaded. So that is on the schedule to be done, and I expect it'll be in the near future. But right now, I don't really have one set up. So patience appreciated. So yeah, here we are with Christina F. And it says, I just realized that the perspectives of the character in the background don't match. While I don't want to look down on him, I'd also be sad to have just walls behind him. So what to do? And how do I keep the contrast of the dark character to the light background, but make him more colorful at the same time? So I have some notes on this, but what was your first impressions of this one, Anna?
Yeah, so I think what she says that they are not fitting is a little bit wrong. I think that she tried, as she writes in her comments, to put the character that we look up to him, and he's looking like we are down on him, and this is what the perspective in the background also tells me. So if she really wants to change that we are looking up, then she must do a completely new composition, because the background doesn't tell me I'm looking up, and the character doesn't tell me I'm looking up because of the way his head piece is warped or rounded downwards, and his belt is rounded downwards. We are looking down on this character. And I was a bit confused that she doesn't want us to look down on him, but maybe this is, if she tried it and didn't paint it, maybe it's also a little bit too much for now. For her, maybe she should stick with looking down on him. I don't think it's a bad thing to look down on him. I would not change it completely then.
Yeah, I assume that you're going with the guideline that looking down on someone makes them look less powerful, kind of inferior. But it is just a guideline, and I don't think it's a big deal at this point. In order to address that, you don't have a big change ahead of you. I'm just thinking that right now you have a vanishing point. If you just line all of these guys up, which I'm sure you do have some guidelines set up, because this is accurate. Instead of having a vanishing point right there at the top of his head, just move that vanishing point down so that it now, I'll pick a different color, it'll show up a little better here. Pick like an orange. Well, let's put a vanishing point right behind his head. And that way, all of these lines are pointing to his face, because that's going to be the focal point of the scene anyway. So all we want to do is move that down, which is essentially going to get that back wall and push it down here. We're just going to flatten out this plane, and then it's going to run all of the walls this way. And we're not changing that much, and you can just make the walls higher if you want. Just have them, go up further if you don't want to have too big of a change there. This composition will help push your attention, that'd actually be towards right to his face, and you're using all those perspective lines to bring it right down to his face. And it's taking the minimal amount of effort on the background. And the two of them might not be completely accurate perspective-wise, but if you make that adjustment, the perspective difference is going to be so minimal that I wouldn't even bother for this kind of artwork. I wouldn't bother that the fact that they're 10% off, who cares? Nobody's going to really question it or care. So that little change with the background, I think you'd be good. Past that, so I had some other notes here.
Me too, but go on.
Perspective, number one, we talked about that. The character lighting, Oh, I did have some files. Okay, I do have some layers set up, a little paint over. Let me go through yours first then. What was your other thoughts? Before I turn those
My
on,
other
because we'll go off on different direction.
So I just had with the creatures themselves. I
Hmm.
think they're taking a bit too much of a space. They're a very busy texture behind him, unifying more of those, making more ghostly. I was confused why only the hats are suddenly coming out of the smoke, have a little bit more of anatomy showing. So that's maybe a little bit of the upper body or something, a claw or something that makes me like go, whoo, what's that? So it's just the hats, and it was a little bit confusing me. Also, the creatures looked like rabbits to me, and I'm not so frightened about rabbits. I don't know how other people think, but make them look a little bit more like I don't know, Anubis or what he was called, or
Mm.
yeah, more Egyptian creepy creatures. Was my next note. And for the lighting, have as an idea some light coming from the front where we are as a viewer. Maybe we are the viewer with a torch in our hand, looking at that mummies trying to
Oh,
attack
yeah.
us.
Hmm.
So there would be a reason for that light to be there. So and you would have a good warm and light contrast, no, with the
Hmm.
mummy coming towards us. And yeah, what I also thought, last thought on that, looking down on something, that you think it's not superior anymore, something that could come, how to say that, lurking in a lurking mode can be also very, very frightening. So,
Yes.
and you would look down on it. So there's not only, you don't have to always look up on things that are gonna kill you. Sometimes you're looking down. So. Yeah,
Yeah, I
these were my
like the
notes.
idea of
Yeah.
possibly having that torch on the front. If you do want to add in that secondary color, this is a very, quick establishment of just kind of that general idea. Completely with you on the head smoke things. I don't mind that they're there. I like the indication that he does have this kind of magic that is taking the shapes of these. I think you're going for jackals because the Egyptians were known to have connection with jackals. Um, but we need to work with those because they're very orthogonal. That is, they're either like this one is completely straight to us, this one is completely sideways to us. So I'm going to suggest, yeah, I went over to sketchfab.com, right there, sketchfab.com, and they have like this is just a dog skull. It's a 3D model that you can just pull up in your browser and turn around any direction that you want. So you can have a very accurate 3D model in any direction that you want, and then you just modify that, you know, however you want, if you want to exaggerate the shapes and stuff. But it's not that difficult to get what you need to help that be more correct. And to keep you from having straight on. And it'd be much better if it was just like slightly one direction or the other, or again, if it's slightly one way or the other. Probably if they were facing outwards, like if they all were kind of doing this sort of thing, so they're watching out for him like more eyes. Okay, I went through and set up a couple of other things. Thinking about the character lighting, you'd mentioned how do you have create him, keep the contrast of the dark character to the light background. Well, what you're wanting to do is establish dark edges, but have a fill light on the front. So that you already have an establishment that there is some light here, and the way that it gets dark along that edge, basically you want to do that everywhere. So I put in this sort of thing. This was some of my idea, which is one, let's let's make him a little looser. Like let some of the bandages start floating around him. Then let some of the bandages turn into smoke. Then they turn into the creatures. You might even have these skulls to be glowing. So go take a look at other images with like magic beasts that have like a glowing effect, and they're more like ghosts rather than solid things. I think that would serve him a lot better. And so you've got more like the floaty bits, and in between on the inside is like this purple glow. I'm saying purple because it ties in his magic to the color of the eyes of the beasts, right up there. And so you get that connection that they're sharing the same magic. It also gives a good pop of glowing color down here, and gives the idea that there is a magic essence to what this thing is. If you do make these into magic, then you want to use that same glowing purple sort of tone, because it plays off of that green as well. So that would be an idea going that direction. And let's see, there we go. Yeah, so what you would have is just like a lot of dark edges going around. And then you have that fill light here in the middle. So you can see how that gets a little bit lighter and then it gets darker on the edge. Brahm actually uses that lighting a lot. And same sort of thing here, that he has like a lot of dark edges, but there's a light right there on his face. Overall, I think this can definitely work. If you do make these things more like glowing ghost, then you might want to darken the background walls a little bit in these areas so that they stand out a bit better. Okay, well, that's about the time we have on this one. Christina, this is good. We want to just... Oh, I did make a small change. I would say, can we pizzazz up his costume a little bit? Just like give him a bigger piece to come down over his shoulders and chest. Give like a big scarab on the bottom of it. Same thing, like some sort of big scarab design on his belt. Maybe some more buckles or bracelets or something along his arms. Just give him some more golden accoutrements. Go look at some other characters. Give him a bit more color and gold. Okay, I want to keep talking about it, but we have many others to talk about.
Yeah, it's a really good one. It has solid base. I'm looking forward to the final version.
Okay, next up we have Daniel Ruger. We have a collection of sketches back up here. I'm going to just move it up a little bit so we can see the main one. Daniel said, I spend almost all of my time trying to make my first idea work. Upper right drawing. We'll take a look at that in a second. But I didn't like it, so I started again and had nearly no time left. Been there, done that. So I did some ball pen sketches in a quick 3D and directly jumped into it. No time for value sketches or proper drawings left. Okay, quick feedback on that is this is the image you're talking about here. Daniel, we've got to be able to determine if an image is going to work without that much work in it. And often it goes back to what Anna was talking about, which is an image can really succeed or fail based on its just general composition, which is the arrangement of the elements. And if that's not working well, it really doesn't matter how much you put in, because we have things like you defining the joints of the knuckles of this little dude, you putting rune patterns across its chest, putting shading and three-dimensional contours across these fingers. We don't need that kind of rendering to determine that there was problems with the scene overall. So for you, I think one of the best things that you can do is doing some more studies of composition. Finding a very standard composition and like just triangular or vertical or thirds, these sorts of things are going to be able to give you a very fast framework to work from that's going to answer a lot of your questions of where do things go in the scene. And you're going to end up avoiding a lot of the time spent figuring out that the other way doesn't work. So what we have now, though, what you landed on is definitely a better image. So it was the right decision to go this way, but we also need to make some tweaks here so that this is going to work better for us. All right, I'm going to pause here for a second. Anna, let's get some thoughts from you about this. We kind of talked about that to begin with, which was okay, we need to put more time into the composition and layout first. But now that we have this, where are you thinking about taking it? Where would you suggest putting the time?
Yeah. So for me, when I looked at the piece, I was a little bit confused about what's going on. I first took her tail, that is on the lower side, as the background that is kind of warping around, and
Mm.
but I think it's her tail, and this is this compositional thing that you already talked about. Make things more clear. Don't try to put too much at once. Going little by little, step by step. What came immediately to my mind is how he's doing. This is really interesting. With everything, that everything has its own space and nothing is overlapping except for the little bug in the front. So even her tangly hair spider thingies are moving in that way that they don't touch visually the bugs that are flying in front. And they're going around it even as if they
Yes.
knew, oh, I need to lift up so people can see me. So that is a very common mistake many people do. They're afraid of covering things they spend time on or put thought into. They want to cover it up and want everything to be visible, but it would add so much more to depth and yeah, it's just better looking if some things are overlapping more. I thought her pose is super weird to me. He tried to go for something super dynamic, but I think he overdid it a little bit. So her back, even if she's snake-like, usually it's a good thing to keep the upper body of these half creatures more human,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise, if you look at it, you feel the pain of that very warped back. And it also goes very close to her arm, which is creating a tangent. And I just changed that. The arm is in a very weird angle. It could not touch the pillar if she coming in front of like that. This is an illusion. It would not be possible. Um, and yeah, so the anatomy is kind of throwing me off there. I gather that she's kind of commanding the box. He does this with the signs, with the runes that she has in her hand, glowing. I think that's a good thing, so people
Mm-hmm.
know, okay, she's commanding these. Yeah, what with my other notes? Yeah, the other things you already mentioned, like the tips in general, I would like to give him. You already talked about
Yeah,
these.
Daniel, the layout composition thing that really is something that you just get better at over time. It's not something that comes quickly. I know that used to spend way more time having to figure out compositions and how to lay out scenes for commissions. Those early MTG images took me ages to work out that sort of thing. I'm much faster at it now, but literally it just takes years. That the more that you do it, the better you get. The more uh, principles you learn to establish and use in order to lay things out. So if it's difficult for you, if it's not real natural, just know, hey, that's normal. So stick with it. Watch some videos on it, do some reading about it, look at some other people's sketches of how they made their images. Um, let's. Will says at Swatches. Okay, what are you saying? Oh, yeah. Okay, I just have to approve that. Okay. Uh, yeah. For the pose, I'm with her, and from here, the general idea of the pose works. But this is one of those times where the 3D isn't going to give you something natural enough. So now let's go get somebody, a real person with a camera on your phone or regular camera or webcam or whatever it is, and just have them like lay down on a couch and do something similar, right? Or lay across a chair. And you're just trying to see, like, because her head's like really tilted up towards her shoulder to a degree that doesn't quite feel natural. The way her arm goes back doesn't feel quite natural. And it's not until you get a real person to be somewhere in that pose that you start realizing, oh, it'd be better if this was cocked forwards or backwards with the elbow or the, shoulder, that sort of thing. So, with this as the idea of the pose direction, let's now go get a real person to mimic that and then use that to help inform it going forwards. Something here with when you're posing a Naga sort of character where it has the human upper body and the serpentine lower body, you want to watch for really quick turns like this. You want to look instead to use more of the longer curves. So if this is coming down, just let it curve down all the way. Just let the body do this. Just a simple curve like that, right? And then, because this feels like, for the human part, you're just about breaking her back to make it turn that much, that quickly. This sort of thing, right? Yeah, the head's forwards, but then this just makes an easy turn. It's not doing that sort of thing. Again, like on this one, big, simple turn. And that's what we're looking at here, instead of doing the extra thing. Or if you want the extra turn out of it, then we need to let it be coming out, somewhere further down. We need more space for it to be doing that. Let it be a longer curve to get there. The other things that would really help the scene is we can actually crop in a lot. And we need to think about the overall composition. The idea works. Naga controlling the scarabs with a with an Ankh magic symbol. And with the composition, we also have to think about the logo. Where's the logo going? Remember, we're approaching this as if it's a real project. So where's the logo go in this scene? She's on the top, so it's got to be on the bottom. If you put it on the bottom, you're covering up the scarab. So, to make the best use of where we are going forwards, and this, I do suggest get what you have, improve it, and go forwards. Don't start again, all right? Too many people do that. Too many people start over, and then they just have to go through the whole trial thing again. Let's zoom in so that we get more view of the main character. We don't really need as much of that background. It's not telling us anything additional. And we don't really need this guy in the center. We could push him off to the side a little bit, but understanding that the logo is going to go right here. So nothing really important needs to be right there in that area. Instead, what we can do is put more of the scarabs on the upper part of the image. That guy might be okay right there. But we do need to pay attention to what Anna brought up, which is this. It's not even a tangent because they're not even touching. It's like it's almost a tangent where everything is just situated so that nothing overlaps. Remember, overlapping is one of our tools to create depth. Overlapping is not bad. Overlapping crucial things is bad. We don't want to cover up a focal point. But overlapping helps us create depth. So there's nothing wrong with that. So keep that in mind when you're putting that in. Also, remember, this needs to be colorful and fun. We're edging a bit into the dark/horror. We don't really need to go that direction. It doesn't need to be quite this dark. She doesn't need to be quite as horror-like. So make sure that we're looking at some of these other images that were supplied in the style guide. And make sure that we're bringing up the color and keeping things a bit more vibrant. Maybe she's not quite so much in shadow. Or the green is a little more truer green and not so kind of dark, warm sort of tone. Yeah. Okay, that'll be it for that one. Moving on. Next we have Francois Leister. Yeah.
François.
Francois. I don't know of a
No,
single person with that
François.
name here. I really liked this image. I think there's a lot going on. For me, this one was really about getting things that were already working and just pushing them even further. Not a lot of mistakes going on here as far as mistakes go. All of these compositions are pretty good. I was with either composition of one or two was probably working best. Yeah, I three is not as much. So you did kind of a combination of those. I said, hope everything's going well. It is. Thank you. On the box cover illustration, I tried to make a family-friendly image.
Clint. I need to stop you there. He wrote French accent. Please read in a French accent.
Okay, go for it.
No, you go.
He didn't say Clint.
It says French accent. Hello, Clint. He's talking to you. Not hello,
You guys
Clint
gotta
and
remember,
Anna.
I don't live in Europe. I'm not around people that speak French or Finnish or
Okay.
anything. I get
Okay,
hillbilly southern here. That's what I get.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he paid for it. I'll try then. Hello, Clint. I hope everything is going well for you in this difficult moment. On this cover illustration, I tried to make a family-friendly image. It is really not my style, and I discovered the world of exaggerated designs. My main issue was to select a value study and a color study, as I don't have a clue what is going or not. Which one should I work on? Thank you a lot. Merci beaucoup.
What did you say at the end?
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, I would not have thought to say that. Yeah, so this is going well. You said the main issue is the value study and color study. I think you're on a pretty good line, especially with the value studies. So let's zoom up on those and take a look. The top one, not so much a value study. It looks like you were just kind of working out what was going on in the scene, adding some shading around on stuff. It's sort of haphazard. Number two is a lot more understandable, and I think that's a good value scheme. Basically, you got darker stuff around the outsides. They're being top lit with a strong light, but yet there's still some fill light, a bounce light that's keeping them illuminated to keep them from going too dark. Or you're basically taking out that top light and just getting the bottom light bouncing up on them. And that could work as well, but I think for what we're going for that sort of energy, family, adventure, having that top light is a really good way to keep it bright and colorful and not getting too dark, too horror. So I'm gonna go towards number two, then three. Color-wise, number one is good because it immediately strikes up the colors that one would associate with an Egypt adventure of this nature. The cool tones, not as much, but I also like the dual color. If you do that, then we want to make sure that we're really playing up the like the warm yellow, orange, contrasting against the green, so that you have a two color color scheme going on. And we're not getting as much gray as you have here. Basically, all of the gray would be shifting over to the green side. Right. The characters themselves, this guy over here is great. I love his pose. You really exaggerated that, the hunch over, good expression on the face. She's got some good energy to her. The hair is blowing. Good angle on her. He seems the less interesting. So I'm going to suggest you actually make some changes to him, like widen his stance out a little bit. Maybe give him more of the arch of the chest. Make him a little bit more heroic. He looks a little unsure. So we want to go ahead and make him feel more heroic. Like this is yeah, I want to play that guy. That guy's cool. They're not necessarily scared, right? These guys are ready to go in there and kick some butt. So I'm gonna suggest maybe making him a little more that direction. What was some of your thoughts here, Anna?
Yeah, I also thought, okay, anything that I'd say would be nitpicking. The first thing that struck me, it's probably because I was going for perspective so much in the last weeks. They are all standing on the horizon line because they are completely on the same height and they're not standing next to each other, but a little bit in front and behind of each other. I'd suggest to be able to get a little bit more depth also in the background, to have the horizon line a tad higher. So that means that the most front character should move slightly down. It doesn't have to be much, but just so much that you don't have them all sitting on one line. Might be a personal thing, a subjective thing, Clint. I'm a little bit unsure about that. What do you think?
I actually did some little adjustments sort of that direction because that was one of my thoughts as well. Again, going back over to the overlapping. Right now, the three of them are almost perfectly separated, especially the center guy and the lady. And we want to create a bit more depth by having somebody in the front and try to get a little more sense of depth. So I did a little paint out just so it won't get too confusing. And then again, let's fill the frame with the subject. It's a good rule of thumb. So you can see that difference there. There's a lot of this space up here that's not doing much. Remember, this is going to be like a box art where we want to fill a lot of the image so that it's seen on a wall that's on the other side of the store, right? So we want as much real estate used as possible. From there, had another paint out. And then I would say, okay, from that, now let's start doing a little adjusting with the heights and with the overlapping. So from there, I cut out the three of them and set it so that this guy's a little bit further down. And he's also a little bit bigger because he's slightly closer to us. And pushed her behind by just a little bit. And that way there's a little overlapping, somebody's in the front, and then the sword overlaps the logo right there. I think that's okay. And a lot of times that's acceptable if you just have some small element overlapping the logo. It's still legible. And we can flip that on and off, and you can take a look at the distance, the difference. Now, this one's just, I mean, it's good. They're interesting characters, but I feel like this is just really pushing you in there. It's a bit more in your face. And you can also see the change of this guy's pose, right? That his legs are spread wider. I give a little more curve to his back. Let his chest come out a little bit more. It just feels a bit more heroic that way. See? So it would be going that direction with it. Could be handy. And if you do that, you're actually covering up a lot more of the background. So if you do want to make some adjustments with background, that's okay. But it's probably not as pivotal if you're using up more of the room. How does those changes look to you, Anna? Is that a direction that you think could work?
Yeah, this looks pretty good. I also think it's a really nice, it's a really nice lecture for us with the width of the feet, so how far they are apart from each other, because I think that's a thing that many people underestimate. This is an English word.
Yes.
Where you, yeah, sorry. But it gives so much more impact and so much more strength to the character to have him, being posed like that. That's a really good improvement, Clint.
I said, he says, about the lights and color, what do you think? Sorry. I would say go with like Value Study 2 and personally probably the Color Study 1 and just keep it in that nice warm kind of Egyptian tones. Or go with 3. I don't think 2 as much, unless you add more of. I would say either go with 1 or do a combination of 1 and 2. so that you have like a cool blue light coming down, but everything in the bottom of the tomb is a lot more of that golden sandy colors. That could be a nice combination as well. For her, I was just thinking on her, a nice change would be, okay, we have him who's got this great haunch over silhouette, very legible that way. He has that nice broad hero stance. Let's adjust her so that she's actually floating. So she's just off of the ground a little bit. And she's got the legs that are kind of, as if you were hanging, right? And your legs get close together as they're just kind of underneath her. And then her cloak can kind of swirl around her as she's using magic to just hover off of the ground. And that way you've got like 3 totally different kinds of poses going on. You don't have to make that change. That's just something that I would consider doing to add some little variance and then make it immediately understandable. Oh, I could play as some sort of magic user. Yeah, good stuff, man. Obviously putting in a lot of time, and you can see that this is a really good progression of he went through the concepts. He went through the compositions, the layouts. He went through several different distinct value lighting schemes and played around with several distinct color variations. And he's not going to have to spend nearly as much time going back to change things. Most of the stuff he has is as good as it needs to be. We're just tweaking the scale of it and a little bit of the positioning. And that's about it. Very good stuff. Yeah. Okay, let's move forwards. Next up, we have Jacqueline. Her. Okay.
Jacqueline, maybe. In German, we have this name, and we say Jacqueline.
Jacqueline, that could be right. Jacqueline. Well, she puts Jackie on here. I'm all behind Jackie. Jackie's great.
Okay.
So did not get finished. Sorry. I hope there's enough for you to critique. Yeah, you don't have to have much for me to have something to say. So, again, this one goes back to don't worry about the values, because you did composition 1, 2, and 3, and then you did the value studies with them. You added shading to them all. So I'm going to suggest going forwards on your images as you're creating them. Just do them in line first, just to work out the composition and the pose, and then do 3 of those, and then pick out the best one of those, and then do 3 value studies of those, and then pick out the best one of those, and then do 3 color studies of that one. You don't necessarily need to do a value study for each one of the compositions. So you want to just, and that way you're making the best use of your time going forwards. So if you want to go with this general layout, this idea, that's okay. But now we need to do value studies of this after you go back and refine the lines. This is another one where I'm getting the impression you're probably not used to doing entire scenes or complicated scenes with a lot of elements. And for a long time, I didn't either. I did very simple one character sort of things. And that is a different skill set. It's a big challenge. So take your time at it. And this goes for everyone. As much as we're approaching this as a fictional commission, if you are just really pushed between, I can't get this right, I'm not happy at this stage, but yet I need to finish it for the challenge, don't worry about finishing it, okay? You do what you need to at the speed you need to do it. We have a huge range of skills of the entries. And for those who are able, that are at a skill level where they can complete an entire image in the challenge time, then absolutely go do that. That's a good challenge for them. If you're not at the point where you can pull that off with the time that you have, or maybe you just don't have the time commitment, then that's okay. Do what you can to the best ability that you can with the time that you have. If that means that you never even get to color, that's okay. But let's just make sure that the lines, the drawing, the values, and the lighting are good by the time that you, with the time that you have. So on this one, we're going with the Mummy King. I forgot what I named him, but the Mummy dude. And he's got a jackal, a magic staff, the snake going around his sarcophagus in the background. These were all good elements indicating an Egyptian theme. But Anna, from here, what do you think? Where would you suggest going with this? Understanding where she is with her skills and with her direction. What would you suggest?
Yeah, it was a little bit hard for me, I must confess. I didn't have a first read. I was a little bit wandering around the painting and trying to figure out what is the story. What does she wants to show us? Is he a creepy guy? Is he a nice guy inviting
Mm-hmm.
us? Um, um, I don't want to say we work in either of these ways to emphasize it more. I don't know. Whether this would be a good advice for her, if it's too much to ask of her, or whether it would be a good thing to say, okay, give him maybe a pose. I mean, she did not get too much into the rendering of the pose yet, so
Mm-hmm.
she might be able to change it. Where he's like attacking us or sending his dog directly at us, or summoning this dog or something like that. So he needs action. He's standing there
Mm-hmm.
holding his stuff with a very nice light, and it has the feeling to me like that lantern thingy from the Ghibli movie Spirited Away. And this is an inviting thing for me, having such a light that
Yeah.
somebody is holding to guide you through somewhere. So I don't know whether it's the best decision to have this stuff. And the second thing about the stuff is having a snake around a stuff like this is actually already a symbol. And that is, if I'm not mistaken, for medicine and health.
Mm-hmm.
So our hospitals use a sign like that with a snake around the staff. So to me, I'd say he's inviting me to being healed or something like that. So this is the symbolic, and then he's holding the staff directly at the dog that is screaming. So it looks like he heard the dog
Mm-hmm.
with the staff. To me, this is my read. I don't want to make fun of it. It's just what I would
Yeah.
see first in this picture. I just want to help here. So I change maybe the dog as first thing, maybe coming towards us, attacking us, and his hand reaching out towards us, which is a hard perspective to get on a hand before shortening, but she could try. Sending the dog at us or something like that to have a little bit more action, and maybe giving his face a less caricature and more very frightening look
Mm-hmm.
on his face. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jackie, going forward with this, my suggestion is going to be what you have right now can serve as the image direction. That is, okay, these are the elements. This is going to guide the general idea of who's in the image, where they're located, what elements are there. But now what we need to go do is get references that are going to help us make all of this stuff more accurate and more interesting. So you're saying, okay, I'm going to have the skeleton dude basically in the center, and I want him holding a staff, and he's going to have the Egyptian, garb on. Okay, cool. But now I need to go find a reference of a pose that's more interesting, and particularly look for some poses that are somebody moving towards the camera with the arm outreached, or doing this sort of thing. There are tons of websites out there of pose references, and just go find one. You're going to be changing it so much with the look that don't worry about using a pose somebody else has used. Every pose has been used by somebody at some point, so don't worry about it. And then then you kind of like move to the sarcophagus, right? The tomb thing over here. and you say, okay, well, we had the idea that there was a sarcophagus. Now I'm going to go find a photo of a sarcophagus, and I'm going to look at what makes it look that way. And then you do a fantasy version of it. Say, well, I think it was kind of neat, this portion of it, so I'm going to make the head bigger. Or maybe I'm going to give it a dog's face instead of a human's face. Or, you find some things about it that you want to exaggerate or change so that it has the authenticity of the original real thing, but yet you've changed it to match the sort of fantasy thing of your image. And then make sure that you're just doing this all in the lines first. And then once you get happy with the lines, the way everything is drawn with the poses, then you move into doing the values and the lighting. For the staff, the serpent around the pole thing originated with Moses. God was judging the children of Israel in the wilderness for murmuring and complaining, so he sent serpents to the camp. And God said, okay, well, go make a bronze serpent, wrap it around a pole, stick it in the middle of the camp. And anybody who looks at the bronze serpent will not be killed by the serpents. And so they did that. Anybody who looked at the serpent would not be killed. And so that's held over to being a medical symbol where it is a symbol of hope and healing. The same analogy is used with Jesus later, that Jesus would put on the cross. Anybody that looks towards him would be saved, not from earthly, bite of serpents, but from sin, and that sort of thing. It's a really interesting symbology that's used all throughout history. I believe the symbol itself is called the caduceus. And so to move around that a little bit, but still keep it, and I'm thinking actually if you go look at Jafar's staff from the animated Aladdin, so that essentially the whole thing is a serpent body that comes up, and then it has the cobra head thing that comes kind of like this, and it comes off. And then maybe there's a light that comes from like the head of the serpent. And so you still get the snake iconography, but yet it's not necessarily a medical symbol. So, yeah. That's kind of cool. The jackal, definitely one of those things I would have to go find a reference for. I wouldn't even try to draw a four-legged jackal thing coming at me without a good reference. So, it's the rod of Asclepius. Yes, caduceus is the version. Okay, that's where I was wrong. The double snake is the caduceus. The single is Asclepius, because he was like the father of medicine. Yeah.
Great. Now Clint and chat makes me feel uneducated. Well done. Well done, everyone.
So, good going forwards. Oh, Jackie, and everyone else as well. If you're working on this stuff, remember putting it on the Facebook group, Swatches.group. If you're not out there, get some feedback during the week. People are happy to give you some feedback, share you some references, that sort of thing. Make use of that opportunity. This is, a learning experience community. Okay. Next up, we have Slava. I'm saying that correct? Now, Slava, I do not recall if you've done a challenge with us before.
No, it's a new name to me too. But there were quite a few for me, at least.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my initial reaction is I really like this direction.
Yep.
This is very different than a lot of the other art that we have submitted, and that's not a bad thing. And I don't want you to feel like you have to mimic my style or anybody else's style. So I think you ought to keep going with what you have. You don't have any notes down here or any comments or questions. So I'm going to just address some of the things that I would think about of how to get, again, what is working and push it a bit forwards. The the lighting is interesting and cool, and it also we need to make sure that it's not going to get too dark because of the nature of what this is and the sort of project that this is. We're going to make sure that we get plenty of light tones in there. I did a little paint over to example some of the things that I was thinking about, but I want to hear your thoughts on it to see if you ended up getting in some of the same results that I was thinking of.
Okay. For the lighting, I wrote down that I really liked the idea with the main character coming out of the shadows into the light where we are. It's a very nice storytelling, and having like the guys in front being half lit and him a little bit lit from above from the bounce light. I like that very much. I also think that behind him, the background is getting too dark. I would put there some atmospheric, like something like, could even be smoke. So if you go for and look at, for example, magic art cards that are drawn or that's so supposed to be in darkness in the night scenes, they have a lot of these nearly mid-tone smoky backgrounds, and they give a lot of atmosphere and mood, and I think that would work here very well. So I see that this could develop into a direction how a magic card would work. So I see this a lot here. And for composition, I like it as well. There's a little bit the place for the title. Yeah, we would have to work around that a little bit. I don't know, would not know whether to put it directly on top or in front of the main character. I would be a little bit lost on where to put that. And the second thing is with the swords pointing outwards of the painting. So I'm a little bit insecure about that one because I had some art instructors who said never have something like that with pointing arms or weapons out of the painting. But sometimes you see it with riot art. They have this sometimes, but I don't know whether there is a mysterious trick to pull off to make things work like that. So yeah, you can tell us that, Clint. You're in the industry. What is the rule for stuff pointing out of the painting?
My rule of thumb would be, does it follow the compositional pattern that you've established? In this case, he's got this one-point perspective where the staircase and the pillars are all following this, basically a radiating pattern of everything expanding out from the center. So I think if the sword is following that angle, it's not really disrupting it to draw the eye because it's just following the pattern. So I would be okay with it in that case. And I guess that is a sword there. So I don't think it's a big deal. But you might think about if it is going off, that it might go off in an upward angle. So like maybe instead of having two swords here, that he's got like a some sort of pole, right? That's going up like this, and maybe they've got a sword going up more this direction. So it brings you back up into the image rather than pointing you down and out of the image. That could be a small adjustment with them. And at this stage, it wouldn't be a very big adjustment because not a lot of detail was put in. I would consider adjusting the pose. Like you have got this guy's body angled this way, downwards, and this guy's body angled the same way. I would consider reversing that so that maybe their shoulders are angled in opposite directions, or even doing it the other way so that they're both angled so that the high shoulder is on the outside going this way, so that essentially their shoulders are pointed you back towards the main character. These sort of small composition changes on their own don't make a big difference, but when you start getting all of the elements and making little tweaks like this, it really heightens the strength of the overall composition. All right, I want to walk through some of the changes I was thinking of that hit on what you were talking about, which is the background's getting too dark. So what can we do about that? We also want to think about how to make that main character stand out a bit more and not get lost in that background. I did see a nice comment up here. I did want to do a little shout out. Michelle says, hey Clint, you reviewed my portfolio a couple of years ago. I do recognize the name. I don't remember the art. Sorry, but I remember coming across your name. And gave me very good tips and motivated a lot. I'm working from Magic the Gathering now. So that is really awesome. I just talked to somebody the other day, got an email, who said that they had watched the channels years ago, and now they're doing work from D&D for it's like they're on their fourth commission for D&D. So that is really cool. Guys, there is multiple people in this group, in this Swatches group, that started off where a lot of you are, and they learned what they could from the videos and the content and the feedback, and they've gone on and they have joined in the industry, and they're working for MTG, they're working for D&D, they're working for these other games. So it absolutely can be done because it is being done. And I'm going to suggest, if I'm going to just throw them on the hot seat, contact them, shoot them a message, ask them how they did it, ask them what was important, ask them how their experience has been. Be respectful. Don't just try to cannibalize their time, but they'd probably be happy to talk to you about it. So consider connecting with them. And I am, because this is coming up more often now, I'm wanting to do maybe a live stream where I just have a couple of these people come on and we just have a conversation with them and we look at some of their work and we talk about what they've learned since they started or what was their journey. And I would love to have you guys come on in a live stream and you guys can shoot them a question during that time, and I can just kind of moderate a discussion on this whole topic. If that would be interesting to you, then let me know. We might start another live stream, a special live stream during the week at some point. So let me know. Okay, so this is what I have on this one. I just made a copy there. First thing I would do is make this guy bigger. So you can see the change on the scale there. He's just too small in the scene. So I'm going to say let's scale him up, and it's okay if the top of his headdress goes off the top of the page. That's okay. We also have to remember that the logo is going right here. That's the only place that it really can go, so that would be going right there. So we want to use as much of that top room as possible for the main character. So we're going to do that. The next thing is a linear dodge layer. This is where we get to throw in a lot more color and a lot more pop into the image. My thought is, let's continue with the color scheme. I love where the color scheme is going here with your second color study, and just run with those colors. So now let's put this blue light coming down on him with the bounce warm light coming up. And you can see that there we have this nice blue light running all along there. And then if we let his, to me it looks like he might have some sort of cloak. If not, I would consider adding a cloak where that light is coming down and hitting through this sheer sort of gossamer thin cloak behind him. And it's just glowing with that blue light. You then get, this is all just with a linear dodge layer, then you pull out these gold accents. So you got this bright sort of shine, these specular shines off of this gold against that dark, and that could be just really, really lovely. And I would even consider adding it, as you can see here, some gold bands or designs or hieroglyphics or something like that on these pillars to help give them more form and also just give more eye candy along those. Personally, I think some sort of golden hieroglyphics or iconography would be really interesting, and I would consider doing that. Another thing is just brightening the whole thing up a little bit. Overall, the whole thing could get brighter in the darkest portion. The area down here, the brightest area, doesn't really need to be a lot lighter. So I would just punch that up a little bit. And right down here, I'm going to suggest making these piles of gold coins. It is a significant part of the game would be collecting treasure, and that you're trying to get the treasure from this guy. And so visually, we want that to be an instant read or at least a secondary element on the image. So I'm going to say if we can do that, and then that also allows us to do a little overlapping where you've got like this little pile of gold coins on this side, and then you got a pile of gold coins going behind it on that side, and then you've got your big bad behind that pile. And that way it establishes several layers. This is something else I actually could have put on the general feedback, which is think in terms of planes. Foreground, midground, background. Try to have overlapping elements that are going to help establish that distance and that depth in the scene. So thoughts on these changes, Anna? Do you think this works, or would you take this a different direction?
No, I really like the changes. Where would you put the title for the game then? In the foreground, I guess.
Yeah, you just put
So
it in the
in the lower.
foreground. You would cover most of the gold. Hopefully, some of the gold would still be visible behind your
Mm,
skeleton dudes. But
yeah, yeah, that's cool. I really like it. Looking forward to that piece.
yeah, me too. I
Solid
do
base.
also really like your mummified dude that looks mummified, but he's not like wrapped up necessarily in the mummy garb all over. Like his face is still just the super crispy skin uh, on your characters. That can be really good. All right. Yeah, thank you for joining the channel. It's always nice to see a bit of a different style. Okay, next up is Caleb. He said, I was super excited to go into this challenge because doing a colorful, stylized piece sounded like a lot of fun. So thank you for bringing this one back. That being said, this definitely wasn't one of those pieces that just clicks. The square composition ended up really throwing me for a loop. I ended up using a lot of placeholders for the concept until I could get in and really tidy this thing up, especially fixing some of the values that got away from me and add some variation for the treasure, pillars, and enemy. I think this works well. The direction works well for this kind of project. The characters are on the cartoonish side, a lot of attitude and character in the characters, and the scene is easily legible. You can look at it and you can pretty much understand what you're looking at. But I think it definitely needs some tweaks. So where would you go with this, Anna?
So the first thing that came to my mind when I looked at this was, the silhouettes. So they are really clumped together, all the characters, especially the guy on the left and the girl in the front. And so neither of them stands really out. They look like they're trying to squeeze into the
Mm-hmm.
painting, that they fit both there. Like when you would try to make a pick a photograph of your whole family and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's trying to squeeze in. This is a little bit the feeling that I get from this one. So I'd give them more space in between each other. And maybe in general, the same thing as I did with one of the paintings earlier, with changing the height of the horizon line to have all the lines that are going to the focal point in the back on a little bit more onto the characters. They're now pointing in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
which where we could have the title. It's also cool, I guess, but I think it would have more dynamic if you choose a perspective where all the lines converge into the girl's face, for example. And yes, because also she and the snake are super upfront, it gets a lot of a flattening effect. So it's always tricky to pull that off. They are very close, and she's basically symmetrical with the way she sits on that snake, with one leg on each side, and the snake being completely symmetrical. It flattens a lot. And then there's a mummy on the left, and there's a mummy on the right, and they're at the same distance, and they're the same size also in the painting. The weapon that is directly pulled towards us is also flattening, because she tried to have this effect of the foreshortening, but it is super vertical, and this takes so verticals are always for something stable and that is not moving, and yeah, have this at a slider angle would probably help this piece more. So these were my first impressions. I don't know whether I'm talking nonsense here, but this was
No, those are good
what I was
thoughts.
coming up.
Uh,
So I didn't go about values or these were my most forward things that I came.
I think this is the only entry that I'm actually going to suggest maybe we back out a little bit. Most of them, it's like crop in, get more subject.
Yeah.
And this one, I feel like you can maybe back the camera up just a little bit, because I don't feel like there's enough breathing room around these guys. And it would be nice to see maybe just like another skeleton, like more than just one piece of one head there in the foreground. And you are absolutely right that usually a completely straight on view of almost anything is a very flat view. So I'm going to second what Anna is saying, which is let's give a little turn to this stuff so that it doesn't feel so flat. And in this case, what we could look at it is let's have the snake and the girl kind of looking in different directions. Like maybe the snake's head is turned so that it's more like this, right? Just a little three-dimensional turn to it. But yet she's turning her head to look down at this one. Like they're both looking at different skeletons, and that her body can actually be turned, like her lower body and her upper body can be twisting a little bit. You've got some turn to it right now, but we need to follow that with the head, so that the head isn't completely straight to us. The character herself seems good. I mean, I like the characters. Each one of the characters have a distinct look to them, and I think that's working well. Along with the shifting of the angle a little bit, we need to do the same thing with the gun, because the gun is feeling very flat. So let's get the gun and have him, once we back out a little bit, we'll have room for the gun to be pointing at somebody else over here. And that'll make the gun feel like it has actual depth to it and not coming straight. Good spotting with the composition. Like right now, this is all pointing down. Remember, the composition is a way to direct the eye. So all of this is pointing down to a place where there's nothing of importance. And we got two major choices. We can either move that point to be where Anna said, which is behind this girl's head, so that everything is lining up to point you at the character, or it needs to be moved up to here so that everything will be pointing to the logo. Both are completely acceptable options, but it really needs to be one or the other, because right now you're just splitting the difference and it's not really helping anything. Okay, I did some color because I love color and light. I had to do a quick little play with that. So first thing is getting something like this and throwing a bit more a bit more color into the whole thing. I read catch down there and I said it. Is using an overlay layer. So just use an overlay layer at 38%, throwing on some pure color, and basically just saying, okay, let's let the things in the foreground, the characters' forwards, be warm, and let everything in the background be cool. But we're going to push into that a little bit. So that's an overlay. Next, using a darken layer at about 40%, dark, warm. And that way we're establishing a shadow pattern. And things are either shadowed or they're lit. It's very clear, one or the other. And you can even see that in your reference images there. They're either shadowed or they're lit. You don't really see the in-between. I'm then using a hard light layer in order to let the light really blast down on top of the worms. So that has a warm light. And then it's coming in and finding these really dull, kind of just dark areas, like down in here behind the pillars that really aren't doing anything, and popping in some extra color. Now I'm going with violet there because violet is between a warm and a cool. So he helps bridge between the foreground colors and the cool background doorway. So it's in between those. And so you go from the warms to the violets to the cools and the turquoise colors. And then playing up, I kind of like the green flames back there. So I went ahead and just left those, but helped bring that up a bit more. So you can see the sort of difference, and we can really pop those colors out and pop in a bit more light. And with that sort of direction and the little tweaks with the composition and the pose tweaks, you've got a really solid image here. And as you have space, try to add a bit more character to the mummies. Maybe add a mummy hand or some dagger points or sword points or something sticking in a frame so you feel like they're being threatened by the mummies. Any last thoughts on this one before we wrap this one up?
No, it's a really, really cool piece. I think when she gonna have finished it, people can print it. Maybe she's getting a call from someone.
Yes,
Can we
I think
use
it
it?
could. This could be a really excellent portfolio piece. So, if you can't do as much as you want to during the challenge time, just do what you can, and then make sure that you go back and you bring it up to the level that you need it for your portfolio later if you don't have the time within the framework. But this could be a good piece to add to a portfolio. Next up is Kina. Ended up choosing what I least expected to pick out every stage of iteration. I had several more thumbnails, drawings, than shown, but picked the strongest 3 for each. Final color scheme a bit too saturated and needs some tweaking, but I kind of like the garish colors if I lean into the more cartoony style. Figured it would pop on the shelf. Suffered a few technical issues with disappearing layers. Nope, not what I was looking for. So we do have some concepts up here. Some of these are really rough. I can't make out too well what I'm looking at. The second one seems the most clear, and that seems to be working pretty well. It doesn't look like that's the one that you went with necessarily. So you did some value studies. You were playing with like a straightforward light, some sort of backlight, like a slash light coming down, and just some different intensities, cools, warms. Warms over cools, I think, is the right choice here. And what was your analysis of this one?
Yeah, I also think that she picked really cool colors that are screaming Egyptian to me. So I think it's a good pick. I was a little bit confused about the mummies that are trying to attack us, because I mean, you can, it's fantasy. You can do whatever you want, but actually a mummy is to me a little bit more into the direction of a half dead person, or how to say, an undead person.
Mm-hmm.
And these poses look like straightly out of a Dragon Ball anime ninja fighting Naruto poses. So or Spider-Man, he could like have a spider web coming out of his hand. So the fighting styles of the mummies, I'm not so sure about whether I would be happy about that when I buy the game and looked at that. I would be like, is it? It could be like pirate versus ninjas, like that. So maybe mummies versus ninjas. So it is a genre mix, I'd say. So to make it short, and if you want to stick with it, it's okay. It's just what came a little bit to my mind at the beginning, and also the perspective. I'm not so quite sure why she made the horizon line so high. I think it would be cooler to have it much lower, but this is a personal preference maybe again. And for the lighting, it might be cool to have, like we had earlier, that the big guy, maybe half of his body, maybe just the legs is already in the light, but the rest is still in shadow. So have not this straight up light. The shadow starts like directly around him in a square shape, if I see it right. So this is a little bit static. Maybe have like a diagonal going through his upper body with the shadow starting directly in the half of his body and having glowing eyes or something. I don't know. To push a little bit more the atmosphere, the mood of this. But I don't know. Maybe my tips are not the best on this piece, Clint. Tell me.
Yeah, I do like the observation about the poses. I think we're looking for more of the shambling zombie sort of pose, and less of the action. These are almost more, like Spider-Man sort of action poses. I'm gonna suggest looking up more of your zombie kind of lurching, undead poses. That's why I was pulled up the style guide. All of the people who are doing the challenge, and also if you guys did not buy a ticket to be a part of the challenge, want to just have your own go at the challenge, I can make the style guide and the outline of this available to you if you want to just take your own time and give it a shot. So they were supplied these different images outlining some different thoughts of things to include. This was a good example of like a main monster. But like this guy here, this sort of skeleton dude, I think we're looking for more of that sort of thing, this kind of lumbering, asymmetrical body type. So these are just little minion dudes, not real athletic. I'm with both of you that the colors, I'm okay with the general color, like the really warms, the kind of oranges and violets, but the straight on lighting is often, it gives you the same effect of having a very straight on face, which is it flattens things, because you are seeing the scene from the same direction of the light. That means you're not getting shadows, which means you're not establishing form, and that makes things feel flat. So I'm gonna suggest a front lighting isn't really what you want, unless you're doing more of what Anna's talking about, which is you're limiting it. Like maybe his upper body is getting lit, but his lower body goes in the shadow, or you reverse it so lower body's in light, but the upper body goes in shadow, except for his glowing eyes from the Sphinx and himself. That's adding in extra colors and stuff. So go take a look at how some other people have handled similar lighting, and see if you can pick up some tips on that direction. Also, we need to make sure that we're not forgetting about logo, right? Logo's got to go somewhere. And this is one of the things that we as artists who are in the industry, or you guys looking to pick up jobs, is that you have to often account for these sorts of things. I did an image for Magic, 2 images for Magic, some marketing images that haven't come out yet. I assume they'll come out in the next couple of months. And there was a lot of that sort of thing going on, where it's, okay, you have this frame right here to draw in, but this part will have the text over top of it, so nothing critical there. This part is going to go around the side of the box. You've got to have the image going to cover that, but part of that's going to have a title on it. This part's going to be cut out because it's going to have a window to show something behind it, but you do have to be able to fill it in. This part's going to, and so you have to lay everything out to make use of as much space as you can without putting anything critical in certain areas. It's just a skill that you work on. So with a logo in this area, let's keep the dudes. Let's give them more of the shambling poses, but we need to move them off to either side so they're not going to be covered up. And let's take a look at the lighting. Actually, I'm not really against this backlighting thing. I think this could be pretty cool. As long as we don't get really dark in the shadows. Or maybe we have some sort of flame light in the foreground that is giving a bit of the underlight. So you've got some underlight and front light of like, you know, some tones here. Or reverse it. Maybe the backlight's really warm and you've got some sort of cold light on the front. I don't really care one way or the other, but we need to get a more interesting lighting that's not going to flatten things out that way. Let's see, anything else? I like the general scene around him, having the Sphinx behind him, having these guys that are, I have to think of Neverending Story with the oracles, right? Statues. We can also put some more treasure around them. Well, this could be a good place to have some treasure around the feet and the base of the Sphinx. That would be a nice inclusion there as well. Okay, it's already 3:40, so I've got to wrap it up there. Moving on to the next one. Madao. Alright, I can't decide between my blue comp or the blue and sun. How do you decide which one to go with? Does the perspective look right to you? Thanks. So the blue comp or the blue and sand, really the question there is harmonious versus contrasting. And I pulled this out. I've opened this before, but this is from my ebook on color. And then essentially all color schemes and color palettes are based around one of three things. It's harmony, contrast, or colorfulness. Harmony would be any similar colors like analogous, monochromatic, or achromatic. Contrast would be complementary, split complementary, rectangle, discordant. You got two opposing colors, and you're putting them in conflict against each other. They contrast each other. The other one is just colorful. It's not trying to do anything. It's more like your triadic color schemes, which were popular for old comic book characters, and they're often used in children's images because children respond a lot more to just color vibrancy than they do harmony or contrast. And so for this, colorfulness is a legit option. It's not as used in, say, Magic the Gathering, but I don't think necessarily harmony is the best choice. If anything, for this image, contrast of the two tone of like the sand and cool tones is probably the best choice. How did you feel about that, Anna?
Yeah, I also like the piece very, very much. She has a great eye for the details, a very good line art. One thing that I might think is really tiny, maybe you'll laugh. It's not so much important, but the guy in the background looking at her, it looks like to me he's looking at her. I changed that to making him a little bit more tilting towards us in the dog's head as well, because to me they look like they want to attack her and not us. So it's a really minor thing. But I would change that maybe, I don't know, flipping the head of the dog like horizontally. Maybe this would help already, to make them, yeah, looking at us because she's summoning these guys and they should be trying to coming towards us. I'm not sure. She has no foreground so much in this painting. Maybe it would be cool to have her raising a corpse in the foreground as well, that we just see like a hand reaching out for her or something like that, that you see, there's another one raising from the earth that she can command and attack. Because at the moment, I'm not so sure, because she looks to me like she's not looking at us, but to the left lower corner of the painting. So I expect something to be there. So you either make her look at us, then I would say, okay, I can get it. She's making the others attack us. But in this case, it might be even cool to have this raising guy in the foreground. It's just an idea. So, yeah. That's all.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that character, but yeah, that's a good point. Making sure that the characters are looking more at the character, the viewer, rather than at her. I do like that the color of the magic in the hand is connected to the color of the eyes. The standard thing that artists do in order to make that connection that they're being controlled. So you picked up on that. You incorporated that. That's nice. I was thinking about the perspective. You said, did the perspective look right to you? Generally, yes, but I would kind of take it a different direction. I would push some of the elements a little more. I'm going to show you what I was thinking along that line. Oh, this was about the color. So the piece up here on the left side is a piece by Chris Ron. It was for MTG. And over here on the right side is, I just got that when I played some variation with the color balance to it, so that it'd be more similar to yours. And that might be a good idea of, getting something like this to help answer how you should address the colors, or what colors you could use, and keep it within a good color scheme. So that was some ideas on that. With the background, I'm thinking, instead of just having this perfectly linear design, let me get this up here. So right now, all of this is going straight up and down, which maybe it's accurate for a telephoto lens, but it would be a lot more adventuresome if it started going upwards and we started looking up at it, or if it started leaning over us. It's more of that tomb feel, if you feel like it's encroaching over you. I'm going to go that direction, and I made some adjustments here. So, there we can see the little adjustments, and it's about actually adding more ruin to it, right? We're letting the pillars start leaning in, and some of the pillars have broken to go sideways, and this piece is broken in the middle, and now it's going down this way, and you get chunks of the pillar that's broken off. We had some more pillars down here for visual interest. We let that go down to this side where this side is crumbled. We're centrating the angles of these. So you had it, and they were basically just flat. I would push it further so that we have more angles. And it's just a bit more heightened that way. And with the crumbling and stuff, this you can have a bit more fun with the shapes. It doesn't have to be so precise. It feels like you're trying to be really, really precise with all this. But that's not what we're going for. We're going for something that's kind of chaotic and fun and slightly exaggerated. So that's what we want to convey a bit more of here. With the character, I'm assuming we're putting her there because we're putting the logo here. It's kind of an odd place for the logo, but I suppose that could work. I'm also thinking that there might be a better way to make use of the foreground. Like Anna talked about maybe having some sort of undead corpse or something that's sort of rising up, and you can see the magic, coming out of its little eye sockets, and it's starting to lumber up, and up off the ground. That's an option. I was also thinking about just reposing her a little bit, so that we're getting a more interesting pose out of this, because a Naga's body, that serpentine body, is just a compositional gold mine. You can do whatever you want with it. And a really simple thing might be to do this. See, again, we're seeing that we're overcomplicating this curve. We're not keeping this curve natural. You've got this, and then you're immediately running into a reverse curve, which that's not the way things move. So we want to think about maybe doing more like that, where it's this curve continuing into the body. And we've got the body looping back on itself a couple of times. And that way it's not just this is flat to us, and then that's almost flat to us going away from us. And so there we could have more of that. Or you could have this could be part of the body looping in the foreground, and we could even have more of the body going back there. You've got a lot of options about how you could twist this around, but I think some combination of this would be more interesting than what you've got necessarily. And also, remember, don't get too dark with her. I know that you're making her like a darker character or darker skin tone, and that's fine. I'm completely with this. I like the African sort of ethnicity and the extended sort of jaw that comes out. It's a nice shape, and the really accentuated cheekbones are nice. And I do particularly like how you got the Egyptian style headdress and made like this viper hood shape out of it. That's really good. The poses on these guys are really excellent too, because just in silhouette, I immediately get that lurching undead feeling from the poses of those guys in the background. I was thinking it could be better if we got this hand, made the hand bigger with exaggerating the foreshortening there, and we moved it out from the body a little bit. You can see the shape here. That way that the silhouette of the arm and the hand are further away from the body, and they're more legible because they're moved away a little bit. And this arm seems really passive. It's just kind of weakly hanging at her side, holding that staff. I think we could probably do something better. Like, even if it was just her arm kind of went down and then our arm went up on the side to hold it. Some way would be more commanding, more interesting than that. And especially with the fact that our arm is going like straight 90 degree and the hand is turned down. It's just a weak sort of pose. So consider reposing that arm and see if we can get something a bit more interesting out of that. So good stuff. I really like the work. You put in a lot of time, giving a lot of consideration to all of the elements. Most all of it is working well. It's about what's, not working as well, tweaking it, getting some more out of it, giving some more visual interest to everything.
Yeah. The one little last note I had was that one of the things in the background were creating a tangent with the top of her headpiece, or head part of her head. I think it's not a headpiece. So it was directly aligned. It started.
Oh, yeah.
So just check that there are no tangents. And if you're insecure about the perspective, just make a layer on top and say, where are all the lines converging to? Are they on the same horizon line? And then you should be fine.
Yeah, we kind of have a tangent on the one side with the pillar piece coming down at the same angle as the headdress, and then on the other side you have the staff right at the end of the other end of the headdress, like running right into it. So just make sure now that you're paying attention to that and we get those corrected. Okay, next up is Thomas Robinette. I'm the one who failed to read the prompt in the beginning about the square comp. Oops. Was it too hard to change the final, luckily? I've been on a real splash art kick lately, so I'm shooting for that type of fill. I think that's what you're getting. The splash art feeling is coming across really well. And man, you've got to been putting in some time. These are some really lovely value studies and color studies going on, and as well as composition. So,
Yeah, they're really good examples. If people say,
yes.
"Oh, I don't know how to do that," look at that. That's how you do it.
Yeah, this is really nice. You can tell that even without color, you know exactly what you're looking at. And a lot of this has to do with making use of the silhouette. Silhouettes have to read, and that's about putting light things against dark things and thinking of things as big blocks of value and not, oh, his head is a value, it has its own values, and the skirt has its own values, and the leg has its own values. No, the body, the entire character has a value scheme. And you're looking at these big gradients of tone, of like on the background going from light to dark overall. These things read really, really well on a value scheme. So you went through a couple of options. I really like this first one out of those three. I don't think that one works as well. You did some more over here. These all work well as too. I'm not really sold on one being better than the other one. They all just have kind of a different impression. I would say, I don't know. They're all really working well, and that's another point is that it's not always, well, what's the right way to do it? Because there isn't a right way to do it. There is good ways and not as good ways. And on the good ways, maybe you have 5 good ways to do it. Well, which one do you like? Well, which one are you most interested in doing? Yeah, you're not always going to know which one is best. Sometimes it's an even choice, and you just pick the one that you're most interested in. And that's kind of the way it goes. These are also pretty good indications of color schemes. That he didn't just change the color of, oh, well, I changed the color of the mouth glow. No, he like literally changed the entire background color scheme. This one is an analogous color scheme with a discordant green. This is a complementary color scheme that the whole thing is based around green and violet. This is also a complementary color scheme, but it's like a blue and an orange. So they're big, massive changes in the color palette. Okay, with that set aside, what was your thoughts with this one? What's working, what's not, or what did you like about it? Sorry, my voice is starting to crack.
No problem. Have a rest. I'll take over here. I was really impressed with the main figurine. It was really cool pose to pull off, and having the connection of the body and the hat with just the reference of the hat. So this is really nice. I get really nice Renekton feel here, if you don't know from League of Legends. I think,
yes.
yeah, maybe my pronunciation was wrong. Was Rennick. I want some things I change would be mainly about the mummies in front.
Mm-hmm.
They look to me a little bit like they are melting. Maybe it's a problem of that he's not rendered it yet, which is not what you have to do for the stage, but they look to me a little bit deformed and like they're melting. So especially the one on the left. It's also the edges a little bit. And this was the first thing I was like, what's happening with that guy? Is he like, what is going on there? And the statue in the background is a bit close, I'd say. It's a little bit big. So you always try to have big shapes, middle shapes, and small shapes in your painting. And I feel like her shape size is around the same size as the main character, especially the vocal point, which is the upper body with the head. So they're having kind of a fight between each other. So I'm with my eyes, I'm going in between these two, back and forth, and I think it's a little bit distracting to have such a big shape in the background. Also, it is not balanced out with something else on the left, so it's a little bit right heavy, that painting. So maybe flipping from time to time will help to see that it's a little bit loaded on the right side. Yeah, but besides that, I'd maybe, because it's a focal point, go a little bit more into the head of the character and really try to think, or maybe make an overpaint on the photograph reference with lines to see the shape. So make like, maybe you can show that while I'm talking, these rounded lines to see that this tooth is also a rounded form and that the snout is a rounded form, and put this into your painting, because by now it looks really cool already, but it looks a little bit flat at some places to me. It doesn't look like forms yet. And maybe this kind of study could help you understanding, yeah, what you're looking at here. I'm pushing it further. Has your voice healed? Can you come back, Clint?
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
Dan said, I had a lot of time furloughed from work, so yeah, had extra time. Okay, well, that worked out well for you then. Uh, I think those are all good observations. Those are all good things to keep in mind, Dan. Especially with the mouth, that is the glowing focal point of the image. That's where your eye is drawn. So you want to make sure that you are definitely pulling out the forms. Some people just leave it as like this kind of vague glow. No, you're going to do better than that. We want to go in there and really establish, okay, well, this is his tongue. We've got the teeth. We want to exaggerate the teeth. It's better to have fewer larger teeth than lots of little teeth. That's not going to read as well in silhouette. We also want to be thinking about the teeth as individual forms. Like the teeth are, coming along this. They're curving over the gum, and then they're coming out at an angle like this. We're looking at that sort of thing. We want to establish the form of each one of these. Make sure that you're looking at some images of like the inside of a crocodile's mouth and see the way that the gums and the inside of the mouth form, the ridges that it creates. That's the sort of detail that we're going to need in there for it to read well. You could also look at dragon mouths, in different like MTG images of how they render dragon mouths. That could be nice as well. I like the observation about the head back here. I don't have a problem with the head. I kind of like the head, but yeah, it's the shape and the placement that is questionable. The fact that it is about the same size as he is kind of a problem. If I were to make a change, I would consider maybe making it so that it's up here. It's like much bigger. And it's obviously bigger than he is. And then you put another one back here, but it's towards the background. Or it's middle size back there. Or maybe there's another one, but it's fallen over. It's broken and it's kind of laying on the ground back there. But we've got to have something else to balance it with. Even if you put another one over here, but maybe that one's broken off halfway and you just have half of the face. And we keep it from being too symmetrical. Or if you changed up the shape of it so that it had like some sort of Egyptian design, coming up over top of it. You do some sort of fantasy design so that it gives it a distinctly larger shape, so it's not as close to his. That could work as well. Okay, now let's go through a couple of things that I was keeping in mind. Yeah, I think he's going to take care of the zombies. I figured like he just hasn't rendered them out a lot. So he'll probably take care of like the melty sort of, they're a little wobbly. But let's say that, Dan, you're probably going to do that. My thought is the logo is getting really little. Like if we would actually put out a board game like this, having that logo that little, probably not going to work. So I think moving the logo to the bottom would actually be a better choice, because there's nothing real pivotal going down there. It's just a dagger in that area, and that would actually allow you to make more use of the upper part of the image for the main character. So I put in a compositional change following that direction. So this is same thing, just moved up. So we've extended from here down. We've extended it up that much. We've painted out the logo so that this guy stands out clear against that simpler background. Just throw the logo down there, and then you can see that size difference. The logo is twice the size, and it really isn't impacting the image, right? It's not covering anything crucial. I just moved the dagger from about here to down here. So either way, the most important thing is that we see these heads. Now, I would consider actually tilting this guy's head the other direction. Having both of them following that tilt doesn't work as well. And if we have this guy's head tilted this way, it actually helps support the angle of your composition. So this guy's leaning into that triangular composition, and this guy doesn't. So if we just reverse this guy's head, he helps form that triangular composition like this. So we can do that. With the lighting, I like the purple-green complementary color scheme. That's working for me. I think that's cool. But it's also getting a bit dark. So adding some more light in, bringing up some values. And this is actually something to keep in mind is if it needs to be brighter, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to expose it more. You need to raise the values. Sometimes that means you need to add in another light. And when you add in that other light, you can actually add in a lot more color with that light. So that's what I was playing around with on this layer. Oh no, this was actually the background. So it's the next layer up here. This one, again, background completely straight. Not as interesting as if we have it following an upward perspective. So we're just thinking it would be better if it had a little bit of an upward perspective so that it's arching over us. That's what I did with this one. You can just see a slight change there with that. And I think that it's a small difference, but it gives it a more cinematic sort of feel to it. Levels, brightening it up, just giving a little fill light of exposure on the front, and then a hard light layer playing up some more color. Here we're giving the idea that this green light is more powerful. And so we're letting this green light fill in a lot of the shadow tones. And these areas where we're losing sense of form, that's what we don't want to do that. We always want to be establishing the form. We want to be indicating the volume of what we're looking at. And you remember that everything is a gradient. Everything needs to be getting lighter to darker, warmer to cooler, saturated to less saturated. And we don't want to get too light value-wise. Otherwise, it's going to just blur into this background. It's going to break up the value scheme. So instead what we want to do is go with a darker color, but it's really saturated, which is what we have with this green. And then we can do the same sort of thing I did with the other scene, which is look for areas in the background where we can add some more pop of color. So the background is more the violet, so maybe we get more of the violet color. It can be to the blue side, it can be to the warm side, and we add some more lights. Like maybe there's some lights back in between these pillars, and that light could then be bouncing off of the top of these column pieces up there. And then it could be accenting the shapes of the Sphinx head, that sort of thing. So this throws in a lot more color to the scene, utilizing what you've already got, and helps establish a bit of more form in the shadowy areas without necessarily losing the silhouettes. I also played up a bit of some rim light across these foreground guys to help separate them from the background. I don't know that you really need it on this guy. His silhouette's already reading pretty well. So with these sort of directions, do you see something like this working? Do you think this is something he could consider?
Yes, this is looking really cool. It was actually one of my last notes with that he had like the split of the top is blue and the lower is purple and the lower is green,
Hmm.
to have like the characters having a mixture like you have
Yeah.
now, no? Of the parts pointing towards us are more greenish. Also in the background, the statue gets a little bit of that greenish light, not too much. And yeah, pay attention that the pillars getting the light also from our direction and not suddenly from the back, because it wouldn't make much sense, I'd say.
Hmm.
So that the
Yeah.
pillars have the same light direction on them. And it pushes a lot the picture. I'm really, really looking forward to the final of this one.
Yeah. Uh, Guys, remember this is an illustration. So we want to keep it generally accurate lighting wise, but there's a lot of room for artistic license. And so you're just generally thinking downward facing planes could be green in this case, upward facing planes are going to be either shadowed or more purple. Whether it be quite as light, quite as dark, quite as saturated, we're not getting that accurate with it. We don't really care. This is actually a really good example. Alexander's image over here, and you can see where he was making use of that principle of everything is a gradient, and he's using a lot of different gradients going on with the skin tone. So it goes from this desaturated, slightly darker tone to the lighter kind of fleshy tone, and then it gets cooler and darker as it moves down to the hands until it gets to the end of the fingers and the joints, where it gets more saturated and warmer. And you see the same sort of thing coming down this leg. And this is a really nice way just to add in color to the scene. And the gradients give it a life and an interest that you don't get when you use flatter tones. So I'm going to suggest Robinette to do this with his scene, is to look for places where there can be these slight gradients of color and tone within a given value and color range. So, okay, I'll wrap it up there. Very cool image. This is another one that I think could be an excellent portfolio image if you have enough time to finish it up. Thomas Medina is up next. Tyler having to wait all the way to the end. Okay, he says the color and light will be the one from study 3, which is right up here. But I had to lower down the layer's opacity where the underpainting is black and white because it would have ended up too darkened. I would have painted everything, but I wasn't sure I was on the right path. Well, you made the right call. Not everything needs to be painted at this stage. Like we said, we just mainly need to establish, if anything, just the drawing, so that we know the composition, the subject, and the arrangement. And then after that, we need to know the value / lighting. And then you establish those, we need to look at the color. So, did you have a chance to take a look at this one? I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I took on everything.
Okay.
Look. Yeah, so for this one, the very first thought I had was, usually you have to tell people like, don't use blacks, don't use
Mhm.
too dark values, and use more midtones. And for him, I want to say, do more
Yeah.
contrast. So he's the one using only midtones, or basically only midtones. And I want to tell him, try to push a little bit your values into different directions. For the composition, to be honest, it's a little bit hard to add the title here for me. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
where you would put it here.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
The thing is, with a square game painting with a title in the middle, it's a little bit problematic to not have a centered a centered composition, or close to centered composition. And this one is very much a reading from left to right, left to
Mm-hmm.
right. And I think it's gonna be hard to pull off, to be honest. It's not the best idea for the purpose. It's a good composition you made, but maybe not for the purpose we are looking for. Well, if we stick with it, let's say we stick with it, I'd say the same thing here. The big shape in the background looks very much cramped. It's very close to us, and it has not a good silhouette. It's not good reading to me. Maybe having it a little bit lower and smaller would have like a better silhouette. So I read it as Sphinx. I think probably it's going to be a Sphinx at the end, because he has a photo of it also put there. The character itself is cool, it's good. For the angle of this comes also to composition again, but I feel like it's not such a dynamic view in this, a little bit from above, and having everything like I don't know how to explain that, but it looks a little bit boring. So there's not much action going on, and I think with a little with the view change, maybe having a very, very low camera angle, and this is this guy that is pointing towards, and we see a creature crawling in this direction or so, would be a little bit more interesting to look at. Yeah, but maybe I'm asking for too much also. Maybe other
That's
tips would
what
be
I
better.
was going to recommend as well. Is that
Mm.
okay? The general scene, the character, the sort of environment that he's in, the character, his little minions around him, Sphinx in the background. That's all good. All right, we've got the right scene, and you even made this handy little 3D mock-up of the scene right here, and this is excellent. And this can give you a lot of the answers you're looking for. But there's a couple of things that we need to do to make it better for what this challenge is. I think you're probably new to doing like marketing style images, and where you're having to allocate space for things like titles and text. And so in this case, we don't really have a good place to put the logo, and we need to be able to incorporate that. So we've got to make an adjustment to the composition so that we retain basically the same subjects that you already have, but it's got to have room for the logo. Top or bottom is really going to be the best place. You don't want to stick it down in the corner. That's not how you advertise things. And the other thing that she said is about the best thing that you can pay attention to, which maybe isn't going to be that hard for you, which is shifting that viewpoint. Right now, we have a viewpoint that tells us the scene, but it's not very dynamic. Our eye level is very high here. It's way up here. That keeps us out of the action and keeps us a third-party view of the situation. But that's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is a first-person view. We want to be down on the level with these dudes, which means that we need to move the camera down so that we're at the eye level of about this guy's leg, right along this level. We need to be about the same level here. And if you've got this pulled up in a 3D scene, then let's move the camera angle down so that we're at that level, and maybe shift it around so that we're looking right along that angle right there. And we're looking up at him so that we want to see him towards the middle with his arm outstretched and with his staff over there. And then the steps are coming across. And then we've got these guys lurching on either side of us here. And then we've got the logo kind of down there. And then you've got the pillars and stuff coming off this way. That's super rough, and I don't know if you can even follow that. But hopefully that's enough direction to give the idea. And if you do that, all of a sudden, without even changing necessarily the character pose in that element, it's going to be way more dynamic just because of the composition. I didn't pull this up earlier, but this is from the... Oh, oops. This is from my ebook on composition. Just free page. Here you go. And so this sort of thing is going to be a really good place to start. It's finding a pattern or shape that the composition is going to be based around. Is it vertical? Is it radiating lines? Is it a target spiral? Is it triangular? And you can see how these images all follow either one or multiple simple compositional patterns. And these images down here that I've done, as complicated as they are with as much stuff as going on, they actually use very simple compositions. It's just basically a wheel with spokes that the wings curve around following this pattern. The angles of the wings, the tendrils coming off of her back, the dress, the legs, the arms, those are all intentionally following this compositional wheel pattern. Same thing with this one. It's all a curve coming out from her back. The wings follow it, the dress follows it, the arm follows it, the hair follows it, the individual feathers follow it. And this makes it feel very cohesive, and it keeps complicated things simplified. This one up here of Aurora, it uses multiple. It uses a target pattern so that the background, the radiating lines of light follow that. And then you have the burst pattern coming out, and the hair and other elements follow that pattern. And so you want to look to find things like spirals and triangles and figure out how to arrange things to fit those. If you don't know which one to use, just use a triangle. Nothing wrong with the triangle. The triangle is like the go-to compositional element to base things around, and it can work really well for your scene. So I'm going to suggest that pick up the ebook if you want to read more on the topic. So viewpoint, composition, logo. Anna talked about it as well, which is split interest. When you have two things of about the same visual size, you split an interest between the two of them. So we want to make sure whatever you do that you don't have this guy the same size and the same importance as your main bad dude. So we want to make sure to minimize him, make him a secondary element. Talking about the Sphinx there in the background. This is telling you a lot of really good information about the lighting. And so make sure that you're paying attention to that. Now, I'm going to suggest that you do a value study following this, following what you've got in this image. That's going to get you 80% of the way there. That's going to answer 80% of your questions about what to do with the lighting and what to do with the colors. So keep that in mind and make sure that you're making more use of that. Going forwards, this is fine for working out like the general perspective, location, that sort of thing of the character. And now you also need to go get a photo of a person, because he's basically humanoid on most of his body. Go get a photo of a person at the angle that you're going to have the view at. So work it out, the view first, figure out what angle you need, and then match that to somebody who's going to model for you. Take a photo, and if you can copy as closely as possible the lighting that the character is going to be under, that's going to give you a huge amount of useful information that you're not going to have to guess at. So that would be my feedback going forwards. So get what you got. We're going to just find a better perspective for it. A lot of the information you've already got, so let's then go out and find references for the things that you need to take them further and get more accurate and get more interesting. Tyler Vale is the last one up, and we might actually finish on time. All right. How you doing, Anna? You getting too tired?
A little bit, but it's okay. Still okay. It's like nearly 12 here, so
okay.
But it's okay.
Says, howdy, I decided to go with a monster design number 3. I like this design. I think that was a good choice. I'm really trying to nail those 3D shapes, mainly looking for general feedback. 3D shapes are coming forward. You have a lot of form going on, a lot of things angled. They're not necessarily flat to us. You've got slight turns on a lot of the forms, and that's helping them feel more 3D. So this is one that I'm feeling is doing quite successfully. I assume you had a pretty good feedback, your impression of this one as well, Anna, right?
Yes, I like it a lot. It's a very nice composition with a Dutch angle that's
Mm-hmm.
also very well used. I like the little bats flying in and this super skinny guy with the big heavy armor. It's hilarious. I really like that design. So two things I would probably change. By now, all the guys in the background are hunched forward. What I liked about the girl with the half serpent, I don't know what it was called, had very successfully is very different poses for each
Mm-hmm.
of the guys in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe change the one on the right or the one on the left and have one like bending backwards, screaming, the other one like looking at us, reaching with a hand towards us or something. That they're not standing like, oh, I lost the coin. The coin, guys, can you help me find it? It's a little bit they're looking on the ground and like, oh. So give it a little bit more action and variety. And the other thing is, again, I'm thinking about the title, where to put it. I think there's space on the lower part of the painting. Maybe we would have to, like you did earlier with the other one, have to move it a little bit upwards. Maybe putting the stuff on a little bit more angle to the left, turn it anti-clockwise. Yeah, so to make it a little bit more, give it more space, and having the title on the bottom. But maybe you don't even need the lifting. I would have to try that on Photoshop, whether there's space for it or not. Yeah, that's the only two things I had. Going good, to my opinion.
Yeah, the comments on the poses of those guys, they are a little monotonous. So it's taking some time to maybe go look at how people have rendered other zombies, undead, that sort of walk, could really help you give some variety there. Other things to consider to help give variety is give them some props. And that can instantly give you an idea of something different about their character or necessitate a different pose style. It's like if this guy over here was lugging a big pole arm or sword, and you could have this long thing here, and his arms would be, pulling down behind him as he's trying to lug this thing behind him. And then instantly you've got a different thing going on. Or maybe, I think these two guys are actually pretty good. Although I might give this guy a dagger or a sword or something over here. This guy isn't working as well for me. So I'm thinking if you do anything, I would change this guy and also make him maybe face the other direction. And so they're all kind of facing outwards. And so you could have him doing that sort of thing where his head is kind of going back, right? And he's just sort of lumbering forwards. I like this guy's legs going out like that. And so that sort of thing could work too on this guy. He's got these kind of wobbly knees, right? And maybe he's got a pole or something that he's holding on to. But yeah, that would be a good change there. I do think you could probably move it up just a little bit to make a bit more room for the logo. Seems like that can fit quite well. I'm going to pull that off. Okay. I did some painting with the light and the color. I was going to say, this is a particularly, good reference. I don't know what you got it from. But this right here, learn what you can from that. A lot of good things going on with that. Lighting, color, rendering. That's exactly the sort of thing that this project would be about. That would be right in line with what we're looking for. So keep that in mind. All right, some other notes. That guy's pose. Consider making this guy's pose go maybe the opposite direction. so he's not leaning out of frame, that his angle of his shoulder goes the opposite direction to help bring you back in. Small thing. I do want to see a change on the angle with the face right here. And we should be looking up at that face. And we're basically looking flat at it. Again, Sketchfab to the rescue. Somebody has a model that you can preview out there and rotate it in 3D of an Egyptian headpiece. Statue is a 3D scan of a statue. So you can go out there and find something like this that will help answer exactly what you need for a statue like this. There was a whole page of stuff like this scan, this model. So I'm sure you can find something that would be close enough. And that would just help get that extra accurate as far as the angle. With the lighting, the general lighting is working. So I'm a fan of that. But it's also illuminating a lot of stuff down here that we don't necessarily need illuminated because it's not a focal point. And also, if you have a logo down here, you really want to play down the contrast and the colors of the area behind the logo so that the logo stands out better. And I would start by putting in a darken layer. This is darkened at 84% with a dark purple because you're running with essentially an orange purple color scheme. We're just saying that the dark is going to be purple. And so that tones it down and gives more of a silhouette to the bottom half of the character and a lit to the top half. And then I could use a lighten layer at about 72% to add in some haze, dust, sand, color that will help to give some softer edges to part of it. That makes his hard edges stand out more and lets the soft part not be as important. And again, helps the logo stand out because the logo would be sharp against some softer tones behind it. And a little linear dodge. Doesn't hurt to add in some rim light to really make him pop out. Some little light color change there. And this also creates more distance. So like he essentially reversed this so that this becomes dark and this becomes light. If you look at that difference there. Yep. And we create that atmosphere. We're looking to do essentially dark to light. Again, everything is a gradient. We're going dark to light. And then this is going essentially lit to dark. So everything is transitioning one way or another. Let's see. As far as the character design, I think that's working really well. I'm liking it. If you do glow for the eyes and the mouth, let's do it a bit more like what you see on these other ones, which is you get a nice bit of color with it, and they're nice and large. You've got like these little pin lights in the eyes. This is probably a better rendition of it. It's like the whole orbit of the eye is glowing. Same thing down here, and that helps it glow. Oh, this somebody else was talking about doing the glow inside of the bandages. That's the sort of thing that that would be really close to it right there. That sort of idea. And the bandages are not perfect, right? Again, you can look at that. You've got some tailing pieces of the bandages, and some pieces are loose. And so we could have that here as well. Okay. Having some gems, now that I'm thinking about it, could be nice. We had some gemstones into maybe different pieces on like the staff, maybe even the statues, to give little pieces of color and glow back there. I think we about covered it, but what's your final thoughts on this one, Anna?
I think he has now a very, very good, something at hand that he can work on to even improve it further. And it's a very good start, and we will see where he takes it within the next 2 weeks.
So for those maybe that didn't join at the very beginning, quick recap. There are 2 groups doing this art challenge right now. We just looked at group 1's concept this Friday, today, right now. Next week, we'll be looking at the concepts from Group 2. The following Friday, in 2 weeks, we'll be looking at the finals from this group. So you can come back and see how they've progressed to their finals. And then the week after that, we will then be having the finals of the second group. But we will be kicking off a new challenge in 2 weeks. When this one finishes, we will be kicking off a new challenge. If there's enough interest, we will again have 2 groups. We'll see how it goes and what the interest is at that time. But if you want to be a part of the community, go out to swatches.group and feel free to post your images, ask some critiques. Be specific if there's something specific that you are trying to get feedback on. Say composition, lighting, character design, whatever. It really helps the others give you more applicable feedback. Also, guys, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the community. You guys have really been good with giving constructive feedback. There's a lot of places, especially on the internet, that they don't even know what constructive feedback sounds like. But you guys are really good, and you're very supportive of each other, and I personally really appreciate it. It makes me proud to be a part of the community, and I just want to say thank you. Keep doing that, and always be supportive. Be mindful of where the person is at. Always being mindful of, hey, we are all innately insecure about our art. So, treating others, it's the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated, right? So, thank you. And if you want to get a hold of me or Anna, the group.
May I say something about the group?
Yeah, go for it.
Because I read a comment earlier with somebody saying, oh, I was a little bit afraid to put it on the group. And I really want to encourage you guys, use the group. We're not laughing at you. We are helping you. And for people who think, oh, what can other students tell me what I don't know already? We have really good artists in this group, and we have also people that are working professional already with their art in this group. It's not just starters and students, and you can get very, very, very good feedback, and sometimes even overpaints if people have the time to do that.
Yes.
And use this opportunity. It's all for free, but what can you lose? I mean, there's just pros. There's no cons on that. And really post your work, even if you're working on the challenge. You can also, by the way, work on the challenge if you don't have any tickets. It's just that Clint and I won't have a look at them on stream, but we are also in the group. So I also give you tips there if needed. Other people will give you tips there. So use this opportunity and post your stuff in the group. This is what the group is there for. And you can just improve with that. And for those handing in next week their submissions, because there was also the question about, do I have to push it as far as the others? No, some people did a little bit too much already. It's okay to hand in a sketch with value and color studies. This is what but we are here for at the moment. You don't have to have a halfway done piece, because if we ask you to change a lot, you're gonna have to do all the work again.
Yes.
And you will then maybe think, I'm gonna abort. I'm not gonna finish this one, because I would have to work over it again all the time. So
remember, all of this is just training. This is where we practice. This is where we learn things. If you weren't making any mistakes, if you knew everything, you wouldn't need to share. But that's not what the group's about. The group is about putting stuff out there because you're wanting to improve, and that you're wise enough to realize, hey, instruction is good, feedback is good, and you're not so proud that you can't hear somebody. So, yeah, it's fun. I feel like there was something else I was going to need to mention.
Yeah, you can think about that. I'm gonna just about Lucas had also a question right at the beginning of our stream. It just didn't fit anywhere, so I put it aside. He used for his painting, he's not taking part in the challenge, but for a painting he just did, he used only soft brushes and now everything looks so washed out. What can he do about to, help this piece out a bit? So in the comments there was
the
already...
best answer to that would be to avoid it by not using a soft brush everywhere.
Yeah.
Even just your standard hard round brush is a great option. So there's a couple of ways you could go about that. What were you thinking as far as addressing that issue?
Yeah. There was a comment from Will, I think, and he said just go over some places where you need, for example, around the focal point with a hard edge and harden up the edges, and that's what I would recommend as well. The best thing, it's a little bit hard to comment on that without having the piece in front of me.
Yeah.
So the best thing would be post it on Facebook, and we are having a look on it. So
remember that soft edges are not inherently bad. In fact, a lot of good images make use of soft edges. I've done it. This actually, I was thinking, I've done a style before, approach, where you actually purposely paint things very soft, and then, let's say, if I just do that here on this image, I'm gonna just. So this is kind of mimicking soft brush. So you have a soft brush and a lot of edges like that, and then you come in with a lasso tool and you find a shape that you like and say that that's the shape. That's a turbo shape. Well, that's our shape. And then you establish some hard edges with the lasso tool. And so you've got this combination of like these really soft shapes, but you don't want to sharpen everything. You want some of it to be soft because it's actually a nice contrast. And so generally what you want to do is just come into the corners, and I can zoom up on that a little bit because I'm sure that's really tiny on screen. That you want to just come into the corners. I think of it as cornering. And you establish those, and you let sort of the middle areas become, you let them remain softer. And this gives you a really nice contrast between hard and soft edges. And so yeah, you're doing a soft brush combined with going back with a lasso tool and crisping up edges, and so you have that contrast between the two. That can be really nice. That's a great way to work in some cases. Well, I'm not thinking of what it was. It seemed like there was something else. I'm still working on the website. It kind of got postponed till I could work on some other things. So that is still something that is in the works. I updated the consult site. So there's more information, video, explanation stuff out there at Art Mentor. And I will be putting up a submission ideas for the upcoming art challenge. So I want to get some input about what people are interested in doing. Anna, if you're interested, I know a while back you went out and talked to some people.
Yep.
And got some input, and people really liked those challenges. So I think we probably need to do that again, get some interest and comments from the group, and see about going forwards with that.
Okay, I'll post something, and you guys can comment below it.
Okay, well, we got to wrap it up. We got to get Anna to sleep. It is late where you are.
Yes.
So thank you again for joining. Catch us out on the group. Until next time, keep drawing.
Bye, guys.